So I was thinking today about white supremacy and the idea of white power and this whole notion that this is what's dominating and driving our society, and that as a white man I need to live in guilt and try to make up for all the violence of my skin color, all of this. And really, as this mad push to stop conspiracy theorists goes on, people are just totally oblivious to the fact that white supremacy is a conspiracy theory by all normal definitions of these terms, right? It's the notion that white people have conspired, right, to maintain their power. They have used their white power throughout history and have used it so effectively that it has embedded itself in the system. So this is a theory that whites conspired, and that whites are continuing to conspire, even at a subconscious level. This is the theory, right? And it is theoretical. Let me say, everything that's in the universities and the media, it's strongly theoretical. It's not based in evidence. And so it is by all definitions a conspiracy theory, a theory about powerful people conspiring. And this is leading edge conspiracy theory. It's tip of the spear in our universities right now. But here's the thing. What makes a good theory by the definition of theory, and what makes a good theory in terms of what is emphasized in science, let's say, is the ability for a theory to show its correctness in the world. So the theory is presented, and then its success is based on the extent to which that theory is proven true in the world. So, for example, the conspiracy theory that the Canadian government is going to launch mandatory quarantine centers. I think it was BuzzFeed and CBC, like multiple mainstream outlets, said this is conspiracy theory, this is dangerous. Trudeau himself came out and said we have to be careful about all this harmful misinformation and conspiracy theory coming out. We have to just trust the health experts and not get led down the wrong path of disinformation, all this shit. And then literally months later, he announces mandatory quarantine centers and completely validates those theories. So that means that was a strong theory. Okay, when you measure the success of a theory in science, that's it. Did the theory become true, and do these theories continue to become true? So by the definition of conspiracy theory, let's say for the Great Reset, the idea that COVID is really the precursor or a cover operation to install the Great Reset, a totally new way of living in the world, where humans are digitized and controlled by a small group of elites. Well, that was called conspiracy theory. And now, we have Klaus Schwab openly saying it. Time magazine is covering the Great Reset. This is out in the open as well. So that's been validated, that there are indeed globalist interests seeking to use the COVID pandemic to transform humanity into this basically sort of digitized communist society across the world. So to a certain extent, that theory has been validated. There are plenty of people that proposed the vaccine passport system, right? There are people who've been challenging vaccines for a long time, who said that this is all leading towards forced mandatory vaccines. I was part of that community. That was called conspiracy theory. Okay, 5 years ago on the internet, you were shamed and belittled for saying that any of this had to do with a building towards mandatory vaccination. But again, the quality of a theory within science is whether or not those theories continue to prove to be true. So what you have here is the communities that are constantly being maligned and attacked for being conspiracy theorist communities are genuinely generating strong theories, whereas the theory that we live under a white supremacist society utterly fails, right? It doesn't end up being provable. Even more deeply, let me challenge it even more directly. So if there is this left-wing movement, right, coming out of the universities that is allegedly challenging white supremacy and that is, bringing it to justice, okay? So then why are literally two of the most powerful white men in the world, Joe Biden and Justin Trudeau, not being canceled for their overt racism? So Justin Trudeau's been, he's been in blackface and brownface multiple times. He's on record as saying, as doing these things. This is well known. Someone like Donald Trump would be canceled for that, would be attacked, would be maligned. It would be totally different. But that's not happening. Okay, Justin Trudeau at no point is brought up as a powerful white man who has done overtly racist things. No, right? Joe Biden, highly racist past. When he was running for president, he literally said, "You're not black if you don't vote for me." He has a history of promoting racist policies that are much worse for black youth, that are aggressive in terms of, arrests for marijuana and all these things, all these overt pieces of evidence that show that this is a man that really truly had like racist beliefs. So let's bring it back, right? The left wing theory and the popular theory within the universities is that we are just surrounded by this violent white supremacy. But these are the very institutions and these are the political groupings of people that are literally uplifting Joe Biden and Justin Trudeau, two powerful white men who have been proven to be overtly racist. So if there really was some sort of massive, beautiful left-wing uprising to stop the powerful white men of this world from conspiring, then Joe Biden and Justin Trudeau should be two of the main targets of such a movement. But this movement ultimately is based on a shitty conspiracy theory. And so this gets us to the fact that actually conspiracy theory is not inherently bad. We need it. We need it because we live on a planet where there is a horrible problem with elite people conspiring to maintain their power and oppress the people below them. Again, that's an apolitical concept. The whole idea of the Occupy movement was that there is a 1% and we are the 99%. What happened to that? Because that's a conspiracy theory. That's the theory that the 1% conspired to maintain their power. That's not a right-wing, far-right extremist conspiracy theory. No, it's not. It's not. The notion of consolidated power, specifically secretly consolidated power, is apolitical. It goes across the spectrum. It goes throughout history. So the very notion that we should stop theorizing about conspiracies is dangerous. The very notion that our main problem is people that won't stop theorizing about conspiracies is false. But we do need good theories that have shown themselves to be true. And so far, a lot of the modern conspiracy theories that are being sort of maligned and targeted and brought up as some of the most dangerous information out there that needs to be censored outright are actually, scientifically speaking, strong theories because they are showing themselves to be true again and again in the world. So the reason we knew there was going to be mandatory quarantine centers, the reason we knew there was going to be vax passports, the reason we knew this was all about driving people towards mandatory vaccination is because we have strong theories. And we've had them for years leading up to this. So this is what really needs to be understood here. That white supremacy is a conspiracy theory, but it's one of the shittiest ones out there. So I was going to post that video as is, but I thought it might be stronger to really just share some evidence of how this is just all theory. That this entire white privilege idea is pure theory, and that it's not tenable when you apply free thought, which is really what this former police officer, who happens to be black, lays out really, really beautifully. So, yeah, here's my evidence.
Woke white people, I'd like to ask you a favor. Please stop asking for forgiveness for your white privilege. You're not fooling anybody. You're not helping black people or any other minority. And your public confessions don't make you look virtuous. They make you look disingenuous, which is a really nice way of saying fake, phony, and fraudulent. For starters, what is white privilege anyway? Because you're born with white skin, you have all these advantages that I don't have? Like what? Like you can get a mortgage loan that I can't get? I got a loan. At a great rate, by the way, and I got the house. Why would a banker not give a loan to someone who met the loan requirements? He doesn't want to make money? I've never heard of such a banker. Or how about this? You can enter a store and not be looked upon with suspicion, but I, a black person, cannot? Except that has never happened to me. But if I was a young dude with my pants hanging down to my butt, I could understand why the store owner would be concerned. I used to be a cop. Believe me, I understand. If I owned a store, I'd be tracking that kid too, whether he was black, white, or anything else. Or what if I had a store that had a history of being shoplifted by young black women, and a young black woman with a bad attitude walked in? Would I be suspicious? Yeah, I would. Who wouldn't? I call that common sense, not bigotry. But there's another way of looking at this. In many ways, in today's America, blacks have more privilege than whites. It's been my experience that whites bent over backwards to give blacks every possible advantage. If two people are equally qualified for a job, the black person will usually get it. Big companies and prestigious universities fall all over one another trying to sign up talented black people. If you deny this, you are denying reality, which is what the person who dreamed up this whole thing did. A professor of women's studies at Wellesley College by the name of Peggy McIntosh. She wrote in an article in 1988 about all the white privilege she thought she had. She listed 46, including this one. I can choose bandages and flesh color and have them more or less match my skin. Wow, that's some kind of privilege. Soon others took up the cause. Today, these so-called progressives dominate our colleges and universities, imposing this absurd notion of white privilege on their students. That's too bad because it does nothing good for white students, and it does nothing good for black students. But of the two, ironically, the white students get the better of the deal. Let me explain. To acknowledge your white privilege is supposed to make you feel bad. Only it doesn't. It makes you feel good because by acknowledging your white privilege, you're declaring yourself to be enlightened. And as a virtue bonus, it also makes you a better person than those whites who don't acknowledge their privilege. White privilege, which is supposed to make you feel bad, ends up making you feel good. Meanwhile, the real damage is to blacks. What makes whites feel good makes blacks angry. More than 50 years after the civil rights movement, the message is, you're still oppressed. How can this not create a victim mentality? And anyone of any color who sees himself as a victim gets angry. Now, I wouldn't deny for a second that there are privileges in life. They're all over the place. There's two-parent family privilege. That's huge. There's being lucky to be born in America privilege. There's good gene privilege. But white privilege? Doesn't it depend on the person? Let's take this for example. A black lawyer and his wife have a baby, and a meth addict, single white woman has a baby. Which kid has privilege? The white one? Because he's white? Come on now. And here's the kicker. Even if it were true, all those claims about white privilege, so what? Would it change a single thing I did? If white people apologize for being white, is that supposed to help me? In what way? So let's be real. White privilege is an attempt by the left to divide Americans by race. It's all theory and all nonsense. If you want to fall for it, go ahead. It's a free country. But don't try to sell it to me. I'm an American who deal with my fellow Americans one-on-one. Try it. It works. I'm Brandon Tatum for Prager University.